Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. You know, for a group so self-righteous, a group that constantly pats itself on the back as being the side that represents good governing and big effective government, they sure do run shit shows now, don't they? It's a whole lot of talk and not a lot to back it up. You know, the Democrats are always on their high horse, but just take a look at their cities and essentially it speaks for itself. We're so great at governing. We are the elite, highly educated Democrats. Well, you got any examples there, pal?
It's gonna be okay. No one will miss you.
Yikes. Yeah, you pretty much get the point. Yeah, maybe Democrats ought to drop the ego a little bit. It's kind of hard to see this left-wing utopia vision that they're constantly trying to sell, when the reality they create is some dystopian nightmare. And the latest nightmarish trend within the dystopian Democrat world is the trend of spending taxpayer dollars to prosecute innocent civilians, good Samaritans, while essentially letting the real criminals off scot-free. This absolutely twisted, backwards, woke criminal law theory that's infected big Democrat cities across the nation. We gotta revisit this Daniel Penny situation. This right here is exactly what I mean for dystopian nightmare fuel. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so here's the clip that inspired this video. We got footage of Daniel Penny walking into court amidst a mob of left-wing radicals who seem to be screaming in the background, "Guilty." With the moment I saw that clip, I felt compelled to make this video. I've been saving it on the shelf for a couple days here. Maybe it hasn't been the top priority in terms of what I think will get views or what's going big in the current news cycle, but it's just something that I had to do. I felt compelled to speak here because frankly, I find the whole situation around Daniel Penny incredibly perverse and disturbing. And I think watching that clip should send chills down the spine of anybody who believes in the principles of justice, fairness, and due process. That clip is a stark reminder of just how poisoned our institutions have become. They've been poisoned with the woke mind virus, a worldview where guilt is predetermined not by the facts but by immutable characteristics. I mean, let's be absolutely clear here. Daniel Penny did nothing wrong. He's a veteran who acted decisively to protect innocent lives on the New York City subway system. And that seems to be the unanimous view from every single witness. Witnesses who were on that train have consistently defended Daniel Penny, saying his actions likely saved lives that day. But instead of receiving recognition as a good Samaritan, which is probably what he deserves, no, Daniel Penny has his entire life upended as he's now getting dragged through the mud by the media, the left-wing mob, of course, thirsting for blood as you saw them on the scene, and of course the justice system putting this guy through the ringer because it's been totally warped by woke ideology. I mean, just to really focus in on how bad this prosecution is, well, even New York City Democrat Mayor Eric Adams seems to be offended by the charges. Eric Adams says Daniel Penny did, quote, "what we should have done as a city." It just seems so warped and twisted, and that view seems to be somewhat bipartisan. I think to a lot of people in a city where violent crime is rampant and fear permeates public spaces, especially in the subway system, you would think in this environment that Daniel Penny's courage, would be celebrated, but instead of celebrating his bravery, leftist activists and their enablers essentially turn him into a scapegoat for the next twisted narrative campaign about race and power dynamics. According to woke logic, Daniel Penny can't possibly be the victim here or a good Samaritan because of the racial and power imbalances. That's basically the argument. But here's where I see the imbalance. I see it in the justice system because this case or the pursuing of these charges, in my view, reeks of racial bias. And not the kind the left loves to accuse others of, but the kind that they themselves perpetuate. Because Daniel Penny is a white man, and he subdued Jordan Neely, who of course was a black man, the left immediately assigns roles, oppressor versus victim. Never mind that Neely was a repeat offender with a long history of violent behavior. Never mind that Neely was threatening innocent people in a confined space, making passengers logically fear for their lives. Never mind all of that. Never mind the facts. In the eyes of the woke mob, ideologically captured, Penny's skin color essentially automatically made him the aggressor and Neely the victim, even when the actual facts of the case don't support the woke fantasy. Yet here we are. Watching a man who should be heralded probably as a hero being paraded through the legal system like a frickin' criminal. Of course, by a typical ideologically driven left-wing prosecutor.
So I'm going to give you an example of something that I did with a recent case of mine, and this has never been done in my office. I had a murder case where the defendant did not intentionally kill the victim. He went into an ATM on the Upper West Side and tried to rob an individual. Unfortunately, it was an older individual. He was 86. And in the course of the robbery, he fell to the ground. And as a result, he died. This is, under the law, a felony murder, which is akin to intentional murder. However, when I first got the case, I learned, I took the time to learn about the defendant. And it was a strong case, so it wasn't about a whodunit. I knew immediately who did it. I could prove it. I could take it to trial that day and win it. But it wasn't about that. It was that the more I learned about the defendant and his life and the circumstances, the kinds of things that Jarrell was talking about, that one should take into account the trauma of that individual, I really felt incredibly sorry for him that he had gotten to that point in his life where he felt like there was no other choice but to commit this robbery.
Who just there in that clip essentially admits that she gives preferential treatment to, quote, marginalized criminals, and I wonder what that means on the opposite end. It means if you're not marginalized, essentially if you're a white cis male, well, you get the Daniel Penny treatment. It's a complete skewing of priorities. It's the typical warped woke worldview, the triple W, the WWW. And really just to focus on that point, these skewed priorities, think about the taxpayer dollars now being wasted on this trial. New York City, a place that is plagued by theft, violent crime, disorder. You know, they have a real criminal problem. While they're continuing to openly admit that their priority isn't about going after actual criminals, but rather to target a man who stepped up when the system failed. This trial should have never happened. The evidence, the witness statements, the context here all points to Penny's innocence. But wokeness demands a spectacle. It demands this white man be vilified to satisfy the narrative, even when the facts contradict it. This is a political trial because the woke mob essentially needs their scalp. And Daniel Penny's the latest target. Another dangerous dystopian precedent being set by the left. I mean, the idea that stepping up to protect your fellow citizens can now make you a criminal just because you offended the green-haired brigade is just so crazy. It's almost unthinkable, but you gotta think it because it's the current reality. That is the woke clown world that we live in, where Daniel Penny's a criminal and George Floyd is a hero. I think the perfect word is backwards. They've got it completely backwards. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys on this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.